If you're like me, you're wondering how the heck did the ex-deputy who killed Sonya Massey have a job as a deputy in the first place? I mean, two DWIs less than a decade ago kicked out of the Army because of one of those DWIs, if I'm not mistaken, under a general discharge because of serious misconduct, worked at 6 agencies in 4 years. And then did you see what ABC 7 Chicago, along with many other news outlets, recently revealed about this guy? Check this out.
And now, ABC News has obtained records from his 11-month tenure at the Logan County Sheriff's Office, including recordings between Grayson and his supervisors discussing inaccuracies in his police reports.
We had this conversation. I told you in that meeting, review all your reports, make sure they're right.
One supervisor is heard reprimanding Grayson for misconduct.
The sheriff and I will not tolerate lying and deception. And I have told you that I have zero tolerance for stretching the law. Because when you have officers that stretch the law, they will get caught, they will get prosecuted, and they will handcuff the rest of law enforcement.
It's so upsetting, but it brings into question the recruiting and retention crisis happening across the country in law enforcement. Now, I worked in law enforcement for several years, and I know a lot of good cops from coast to coast throughout my travels speaking to police officers. But you cannot deny that there is a recruiting crisis. I mean, I went to speak at a conference not too long ago, and not even half of the officers who were supposed to be at the conference for the training could show up because the departments couldn't release them for training because they were so short staffed. This is not good, but we've got to talk more about it as well as focus on solutions so that departments are at not such a high risk of hiring liabilities such as this ex-deputy who killed Sonya Massey. So I asked former police officer and now owner of Inter-County Investigations and Solutions out of Pennsylvania, Chad Bruckner, to speak more about this recruiting crisis. And please understand, he and I are offering our opinions and he's offering up his experience of what he's noticed while running background checks. Let's get right to this interview. This guy, in my opinion, should have never worn the badge. And I keep thinking, like many people, how the heck did this guy get hired? So, I mean, what's your opinion?
You know, the saddest part of that video, Scott, is that they were having a conversation. Like, there was no really event. Like, they're talking. He got a little threatened, a little scared. He perceived something to be, I guess. And, and then it just pulls out his fire and just escalated so quickly. And it's heartbreaking to watch, like a human die on camera, when something, we did this job and, like that I've been in those situations countless times. It's de-escalation. It's have a conversation. There was no immediate threat running towards the officer. Just holding the pot, I guess, was a barrier, a partition there between the kitchen and the counter. It's heartbreaking to see. And I you asked me to jump on and do this about the police backgrounds, and this is what my company does full time. Well, that's all we do. We just screen people for local government, police officers, finance directors, town managers, police chiefs. So we see this every day, and we've seen the standards suffer. I was talking to a police chief today that we're doing police backgrounds for, and he's lamenting at the fact that there aren't good qualified candidates. He's feeling the political pressure to fill those spots from over him. So, man, this is a great conversation to just have a reset and to stop. This police culture is so small. Less than 0.004 of Americans are police officers. So to you and me and every cop watching this, it's our whole life. It's our whole world. But there are not over 99.5% of Americans are going to watch this video who have never been a cop, deal with cops in their neighborhood and community, and have questions about how we do our job. And they want to know, like, yeah, what is up? And I think it's a great time to be like, we got to reset this thing. We are not the badasses that we thought we are. We're guardians and protectors. Oh, by the way, we can take a life or use a force if we absolutely need to. That we know that that's an option. But my God, that is like something we prepare for and we train for, but we also double down on love and service, knowing full well that could be an option. But I think too many of us in this field just lead with violence. We lead with force. We lead with confrontation and authority. And it's never going to work. And we see this problem we're in now, this crisis of recruitment and retention. It's not going to get better. It's getting worse because of situations like this and because of hiring practices like we're going on all across America right now.
What do you think PDs need to implement so that we don't get someone like that ex-deputy?
Yeah. So I'll share a little bit of my perspectives. What do we do here in Pennsylvania? So in Pennsylvania, since 2020, since the George Floyd incident and the riots, they're called Act 57 in Pennsylvania. And Act 57 was enacted in 2020 to basically prevent bad eggs from bouncing from police department to police department. So I credit and celebrate the initiative. Like any other act, it's going to need revisiting and remodeling as we go on. But, the biggest thing about the act is police departments now must share full disclosure of personnel files, not selective files, Not report that this officer worked here. Oh, he was only part-time here for a couple of weeks. No, you got to show every file, because that part-timer who was only there for a couple of weeks, the chief might just, or the chief executive might just be blowing off. It's not even worth sending you. They weren't here because they want to get rid of that officer. That 2 weeks could have been that officer was sexually harassing another officer, and that chief doesn't know how to deal with this, or how to remedy the conflict, or isn't the most adept leader to handle that. So I'm just going to hope they leave and not tell the next chief about that. And we see that. So Act 57 came out, like every file, every police department, like this officer, 6 departments. So in Pennsylvania, as a background investigator, I have to drive to all of this. This is Pennsylvania. Every 6 department, sit down with a designee from that police department with that personnel file in a private room, in a secure room. And I can't take pictures, but you take handwritten notes of everything in there that is of suspect, and you come back and you put that in the background file. That's part of an official record. That record then gets sent to the next police department, the next hiring agency. That's on them if they know all this information to hire, which we're still seeing. It's a multitude of failures here. We're still seeing chiefs who know full well that this officer shouldn't be an officer, but they're so short on personnel that they hire him anyway, him or her anyway. Huge failure, huge failure. So we're just dealing with a multitude of issues. I think there's a lot of incompetence right now in a multitude of institutions here. And if you have incompetence throughout institutions, it's really hard to develop best practices. We have instituted politics over people, many agencies. So it's just a good conversation to come back and reset. Do we want the best officers? If we do, we have to create processes that see everybody for their full potential. Even if they don't have a police academy degree or certification, but they walk in here saying, I love people, I want to serve, I'm a hard worker. Invest in that person. Find a way to get that person in the academy. Who cares they weren't in the military? Or maybe they don't own a firearm, or they never been to the range. Like, it's a great time to talk about everything of how we can fill these uniforms in our communities, which is the most important thing for residents, with the best qualified police officers.
In your opinion, based on the background investigations you do in the rules and standards, and I guess downright at some points laws in Pennsylvania, would someone, is it that bad now, or someone with 2 prior DWIs less than a decade ago applies to law enforcement and has worked now, say 5 agencies, 6 agencies in less than 4 years? Is that still like, yeah, you stand a great chance of getting hired? Is it that bad now?
Absolutely. We're doing it. We're seeing it. This is what we do this is all we do all day long. So we talk to police chiefs and administrators, and they complain about the same thing too. So it's not really a blame angle at this point. We got to just come together. Everyone that has a seat at the table has to put the egos down and say, how do we fix this? Because it's not getting better. It's getting worse.
How do you think it can be fixed? I know this goes a little bit beyond background investigations, but in your opinion, you've worked with these chiefs. You work with the leaders of law enforcement, particularly in Pennsylvania. How do you think it can be fixed?
Yeah, I don't want to say it's so simple, because it's not simple, but I believe it. I believe it in my heart of hearts, and it's organizational culture. So we're living in a time where the digital technology has never been as abundant. People can do anything from their cell phone. They don't have to get off their couch to apply to a job. You can sit on Indeed on your phone and apply to a job. You can read reviews. You can Google things. So if police departments aren't leading culturally in a good way, which a lot of police departments aren't, that is driving the top talent out. Now, in addition, we have all this information at our disposal, and prospects are saying, I don't want to work at X police department because I heard so-and-so said this. I went on this Google review. I read so-and-so's book, and they said the toxic. They're like, no, thank you. I'm not going there. I want to serve. I want to be impactful, but I'll have to maybe be a firefighter, be an EMT, do something else. But police right now, no. And it's a shame. It's the best profession out there, I think. So you have so much potential to affect so many positive lives in so many healthy ways. If you're a young prospect out, you watch this video on Scott's channel, and you have the ability to serve, and you have a big heart, and you want to be a part of something, like, don't fight that. Chase that down, but you're going to have to find the right agency that will celebrate that and welcome you and let you do that. And it's going to take some more time. Considering
what happened in this horrible incident where this ex-deputy killed Sonya Massey, he should have never been a cop, in my opinion. Is this a sudden event where the hiring standards have, in some cases, been lower, or departments are more at risk for hiring these people that could be a liability because they're so short-staffed, or have we seen this coming?
Yeah, we've seen this coming, and it's a slow drag, and it's been happening. You can't turn a blind eye to it. And I think most leaders know that it's happening. It just takes the courage to fix it. The biggest downfall of the last 5 years, in my opinion, of policing has been the mass exodus of top talent. you're a father, Scott. I'm a father. You left the job. I left the job. For whatever those circumstances are, I talked to a lot of police officers who left before they hit their full retirement, who are pretty squared away. They're running businesses or they're moving into something else or having success. That is the biggest downfall. And I'll say this: if I don't teach my kids how to be a good human being, they don't know how to be a good human being. They don't know. They have to be shown. They have to be developed. If I sit here and drink alcohol in front of them all day long, they will become alcoholics. If I love on them and encourage them and push them, they'll hopefully be disciplined and have a good work ethic. Now, obviously, it's going to take mentorship and daily interaction. We need the same thing in the police departments. If we don't develop the officers, they're not prepared to train the next level. Now I'm going to take it even another level. When you have the top talent leaving, now you have the officers who are not the top talent training the new officers. So what's happening is you're going to have a generational or a legacy problem here, where for 10, 15 years, or many agencies across America are going to be dysfunctional. And they're going to have to try to put things and get back, because now they have so many bad practices, unhealthy officers. Officers have been there 7, 8, 10 years who are not the best because they were trained by the officers who weren't that great. So the FTO is the fundamental, most important role of police department. I think it should have, other than the chief, you have to have a great chief. So, but after that, you have to have a strong FTO, and that has to be invested in that program to get them through. Without that, you're just starting them off on day one with no experience. All they have is a love and a passion. You're going to ruin that. You're going to kill that. They're going to develop bad habits. And then, God forbid, they end up in a use of force incident years later because they didn't have the proper training. So much on this development training is a big deal.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad you brought up these points. I'm bothered by some of what I'm seeing, particularly when I read about, say, taking away the physical fitness standards. And it's already bad enough that we have maybe an officer who's been on a year and a half, maybe 2 years training a brand new officer. I don't know, man. This is tough.
Yeah, you know what? I've been asking myself these questions a lot, Scott, because I'm a critical thinker like you are. And I think to myself, if I see it, you see it, so many people see it, so many chiefs we talk to see it, so many politicians see it. Nobody's arguing against this. So then I ask myself, is this intentional, right? So if everybody knows it and everybody has a stake and the stakeholders have the ability to fix it and it's not being fixed, I have to ask the question logically, is this intentional? And I ask that question for this reason. If we look at the larger political landscape of America, it's bigger than safety. It's a big deal in this America. I think people don't realize, the average citizen doesn't realize, if the police profession, the military profession, they fall in this country, that's your first flag that there's societal chaos. So to me, it's a big deal. We really got to not let people have excuses, not let them off the hook, keep standards high, make sure these chiefs are creating great cultures. That's the most important thing. And we got to hold people accountable.